Once again, good morning, students. So last class we were learning about different systems of classification proposed by different scientists. And we had discussed about two kingdom classification and also five kingdom classification. Who proposed two kingdom classification? Michael, who proposed two kingdom classification?
Carolus Linnaeus.
Carolus Linnaeus. And there were some drawbacks in two kingdom classification. Tell me any one drawback of two kingdom classification. Steffi, any one drawback of two kingdom classification?
He didn't distinguish between
A little louder, Steffi.
Ma'am, he didn't distinguish between prokaryotes and eukaryotes.
Eukaryotes. And he grouped them into which kingdom?
Plants.
Plants. Based on which feature?
Cell wall.
Okay, very good. And presently we are following five kingdom classification. Who proposed it, Anna? Who proposed five kingdom classification?
Ma'am, Robert Whittaker.
Robert Whittaker. And which are the five kingdoms coming under that? Sania? Five kingdoms proposed by Robert Whittaker.
Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Mammalia.
Animalia. So today we are going to see the first kingdom, the details of the first kingdom, that is kingdom Monera. Okay? We will learn more about kingdom Monera today. So the first kingdom we are going to discuss is kingdom Monera. Kingdom Monera includes bacteria. Bacteria are the sole members of this particular kingdom, and this is the only kingdom which comprises of unicellular prokaryotes. All the other kingdoms include eukaryotes. Only this kingdom, kingdom Monera, includes prokaryotes, unicellular prokaryotes. So prokaryotes, as we have learned before, these are the organisms where the nucleus is without a nuclear membrane. In prokaryotes, nuclear material is undefined and it consists only of nucleic acids, and you call it as a nucleoid. Nuclear membrane is absent in prokaryotes. So Monera is the kingdom which includes unicellular prokaryotes. As I told you, bacteria are the sole members of this particular kingdom. They are the most abundant microorganisms among all the other microorganisms we have discussed. So bacteria, they form the sole members of the most abundant microorganism. If you take a handful of soil, there will be hundreds of bacteria in that. And they are microscopic, as you know, and they have the capacity to live in extreme climatic conditions, extreme habitats. You can see them in hot springs, deserts, snow, deep oceans, marshy areas. So all the extremes of habitats where even human beings cannot survive, there too you can find bacteria. And many of the bacteria, they lead a parasitic life. They can live inside or outside the body of the host and lead a parasitic life. So we were discussing about kingdom Monera, where bacteria form the sole members. It includes unicellular prokaryotes. And they are the most, bacteria are the most abundant microorganisms, and they are found in all the harsh habitats or harsh climatic conditions, all the extreme habitats like hot springs, deserts, snow, deep oceans, marshy areas, everywhere you can find bacteria. They are, many of them lead a parasitic life. Now moving on to the next slide. Bacteria you can classify into different types. There are different criteria for classifying. So based on the shape, if you categorize, you can divide them into 4 types. Based on the shape, bacteria can be categorized into 4. And they include coccus bacteria, the round shaped or spherical bacteria, you call it as coccus. And rod-shaped bacteria are known as bacillus. Coma-shaped Vibrio and spiral-shaped Spirillum. So based on the shape, bacteria can be categorized into four. Coccus, which includes spherical bacteria, Bacillus including rod shape, Vibrium includes coma shape, and Spirillum, spiral shaped bacteria. These are the four types of bacteria based on their shape. Now coming to the other features. The structure of bacteria seems to be very simple. They have just a nuclear material, not even a nuclear membrane. They are single celled. Seems to be very simple structure. But actually, they show too much of complexity in their behavior as well as metabolic reactions. Even though bacteria, they seem to be very simple organism. Their structures seem to be very simple. They are very complex. They show a lot of complexity in their behavior as well as they show metabolic diversity. And bacteria, they show different modes of nutrition. I told you that they show a great deal of metabolic diversity. If you take the case of the modes of nutrition found in them, you can find different types of nutrition are followed by bacteria, both autotrophic as well as heterotrophic. Based on the mode of nutrition, you can categorize them into autotrophic. You can categorize them into autotrophic, who will make use of inorganic substrates and synthesize food. This autotrophic you can further categorize into two types. Autotrophic, as you know, auto, self, trophic, nutrition, capable of synthesizing food on their own. And this can be categorized into two types, chemosynthetic. You can categorize them into chemosynthetic and photosynthetic.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, what you're writing is not being shared.
It's not seen?
Yeah.
Okay. Just let me see. Annotate, no? Okay. Now can you see? Punya? Is it seen now?
No, ma'am.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Louder, please.
Now it's seen, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, child. So autotrophic nutrition, you can categorize into two types. One is chemosynthetic. First one, chemosynthetic, and the next one, photosynthetic. Photosynthetic and chemosynthetic. I'll repeat once again. As we already discussed, bacteria, they show so much of diversity in their metabolic reactions. If you consider their modes of nutrition, they show a lot of diversity. They follow both autotrophic as well as heterotrophic modes of nutrition. And autotrophic organisms means those organisms or the mode of nutrition where the organisms can synthesize their own food using inorganic substrates. You can further categorize autotrophic nutrition into chemosynthetic and photosynthetic. Photosynthetic, you are familiar. They will make use of the simple inorganic substances like carbon dioxide and water and synthesizes food in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. You're familiar with that. Whereas chemosynthetic means here the organisms make use of inorganic substances such as nitrates, nitrites, ammonia, etc. and release energy. They oxidize these substances, nitrates, nitrites, ammonia, and release energy. And that energy is used for synthesizing ATP molecules. I'll repeat once again. Autotrophic as well as heterotrophic modes of nutrition are found in bacteria. Autotrophic mode of nutrition can be further subdivided into chemosynthetic and photosynthetic. Photosynthetic means they make use of carbon dioxide and water and synthesize food in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, just like green plants. Whereas chemosynthetic means they make use of or they oxidize nitrites, nitrates, ammonia, etc. and release energy, which carry out or using the energy release, they can synthesize ATP. These are the two modes of autotrophic nutrition. Clear? Now, coming to heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Heterotrophic mode of nutrition, as the name suggests, hetero means others, trophic means nutrition. They depend upon other organisms for their food. They cannot synthesize food like autotrophs, but they will depend upon other organisms for their food. And heterotrophic mode of nutrition, again, you can categorize them into two types, parasitic and saprophytic. Bacteria show both parasitic as well as saprophytic mode of nutrition. So when we discussed the modes of nutrition itself, you understood how much diversity they are exhibiting. Okay? Is that clear? I'll repeat once again. Bacteria, they show great deal of diversity in their metabolic reactions. They show so much of complexity in their behavior too, and they carry out both autotrophic and heterotrophic modes of nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition includes two types, chemosynthetic, where they make use of inorganic substances like nitrates, nitrites, ammonia, etc. At the same time, they can carry out photosynthetic mode of nutrition also. And heterotrophic mode of nutrition includes parasitic and saprophytic. Parasitic by leading a parasitic life. Saprophytic means feeding on dead and decaying matter. Those terms are familiar to you. So have you understood any doubts? Can I move on to the next one? Can I move on to the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so we were discussing about bacteria and their modes of nutrition. Now next we have to learn about the categorization of bacteria into two types. One is archaebacteria and the other one is, okay children, we'll move on to the next slide. That is about archaebacteria, and I told you that bacteria can be further classified into, so based on the modes of nutrition we discussed, based on the shape also we discussed different types of bacteria. Next we are moving on to another categorization of bacteria based on their structural and other features. We classify bacteria into archaebacteria and eubacteria. Archaebacteria, primitive bacteria, and archaebacteria and eubacteria. And let us see more about archaebacteria and eubacteria. And archaebacteria, they are unique. This type of bacteria or archaebacteria, they are unique and they are found in all the adverse or harsh climatic conditions. So based on the habitat where they are surviving, you can categorize them into halophiles, thermoacidophiles, and methanogens. I'll repeat once again. Bacteria, yet another classification of bacteria we are dealing now. You can categorize them into archaebacteria and eubacteria. First, let us see archaebacteria. Archaebacteria, they are very unique because they have adaptations to survive in harsh climatic conditions. Based on the habitat where they live, you can categorize them into halophiles, thermoacidophiles, and methanogens. Halophiles are those which are found in salty areas. Thermoacidophiles are found in hot springs, and methanogens are found in marshy areas. I'll repeat once again. We were discussing about archaebacteria. There are 3 types of archaebacteria. Based on the habitat you find them. First one, halophiles, found in salty water. And the group which is found in hot springs, it is named as thermoacidophiles. And the archaebacteria found in marshy areas are known as methanogens. And they are capable of surviving in harsh climatic conditions or adverse climatic conditions because of the presence or because of the peculiarity in their cell wall structure. When compared to other bacteria, they have a unique structure for their cell wall, which enables them to survive under harsh climatic conditions. Okay? And methanogens, they have an important property. Methanogens, you find them in the digestive system or in the gut of ruminant animals. Ruminant animals means cut-chewing animals like cows, buffaloes, etc. You might have heard about biogas production. From cow dung, from the dung of animals, you can produce biogas which can be used as a fuel in your household. And this is produced with the help of methanogens. Methanogens, they are found in the gut or digestive system of cut-chewing animals. And these organisms present in their dung will help in the production of methane or biogas. So that is one economic importance of methanogens. So repeating once again, we were discussing about archaebacteria. Archaebacteria, they are unique. They can survive in all the harsh climatic conditions or all the adverse or harsh habitats you can find them. Based on the habitat where they are found, you can categorize them into halophiles, thermoacidophiles, and methanogens. Halophiles found in salty water, thermoacidophiles in hot springs, methanogens in marshy areas. And they are able to withstand extreme habitat because of the unique structure of their cell wall. Unlike other bacteria, they have a special structure for their cell wall, which enables them to withstand all the harsh conditions. And methanogens, they are found in the gut of ruminants or cut-chewing animals. It is due to the presence of this methanogens, we are able to produce biogas from their dung. Biogas or methane is produced from the dung of these animals, and that is made possible with the help of methanogens excreted through their digestive system or excreted or found in their dung. And biogas is an important fuel, a cheaper fuel than LPG, which can be used in your households. Now let us move on to eubacteria. So we have completed archaebacteria. Now we are moving on to eubacteria. Eubacteria, they have a rigid cell wall. Their cell wall is very rigid, and those organisms, those eubacteria which are motile, capable of movement, they have the presence of flagella. Flagellum singular, flagella plural. So flagella are the locomotory organs found in bacteria. Okay. And eubacteria, based on the mode of nutrition, you can categorize them into autotrophs and heterotrophs. Once again, I will repeat, archaebacteria we had completed. Now we are moving on to eubacteria. Eubacteria, they have a rigid cell wall and they have flagellum for movement. Based on their mode of nutrition, you can categorize them into autotrophs and heterotrophs. So one by one, we will learn about the different types of eubacteria. let us start with the first one. Let us start with the first one, that is photosynthetic autotrophs or cyanobacteria. Photosynthetic autotrophs or cyanobacteria. We are discussing about the classification of eubacteria based on their mode of nutrition. The first one is cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria or blue-green bacteria. You are familiar. Children, there was power failure. Okay. Punya got bored when the power went. So first we will revise anyway. Let us revise what we have covered and then we'll move on to eubacteria. So let me ask you some questions. Ready? No doubts, no? Okay. So we discussed about the categorization of bacteria into different types based on their shape. Can you tell me which are the 4 types of bacteria based on their shape? Nandana, can you name the 4 types of bacteria based on their shape?
Yes, ma'am. Focus, that is spherical.
Okay.
Bacillus, rod shape. Vibrio, coma shape. And spirillum, spiral shape.
Spiral shape. Okay. Then we learned about archaebacteria. And I told you that archaebacteria, they are adapted to survive in extreme habitats. And 3 types we discussed. Which are those 3 types? Vidur, the 3 types of archaebacteria that we discussed?
Ma'am, in salty areas.
Name them.
Halophiles.
Halophiles.
Acidophiles.
Thermoacidophiles.
Thermoacidophiles.
And the last one?
Methane.
Methanogens. And I told you about the significance of methanogens. What was that, Steffi? What special feature of methanogens we discussed? Where are they found?
They are present in guts of ruminant animals.
Okay. And they help in the production of?
Methane. Biogas.
Methane or?
Biogas.
It is used for? It is used as what? What is the advantage of producing biogas? No use. Simply we are preparing. Simply biogas is being produced. It can be used as a substitute for LPG. It can be used as a fuel in your households. Okay, now again we'll move on to the next slide, and we were discussing about eubacteria, and I told you that eubacteria, they are having a very rigid cell wall. Eubacteria, they have a rigid cell wall, and they have the locomotory structure known as flagellum. Not only for locomotion, they can also be used for capturing the food. They can also be used for capturing the food or nutrition, as well as it helps in locomotion. Okay. Now these photosynthetic autotrophs or cyanobacteria, they have chlorophyll A, because chlorophyll A is essential because they have to carry out photosynthesis. So similar to higher plants, higher green plants, they have chlorophyll A, which enable them to synthesize food on their own by photosynthesis. And they are unicellular. Anyway, in the beginning we discussed all bacteria are unicellular prokaryotes. They are colonial or filamentous. Colonial means they form so many bacteria together, form colonies or groups. And sometimes they can form filamentous forms. Filamentous means rather than forming groups, they will be joined end to end and they form a filament-like structure. As you can see in the figure, they form filament-like structure. So many organisms, many bacteria will be joined together. They form a thread-like or filamentous structures or ribbon-like structures. And you can find them both in marine habitat as well as freshwater habitat, and even on land. They are found in different habitats, marine, terrestrial, and even in freshwater habitats you can find them. And the colonies of bacteria or cyanobacteria are surrounded by a covering. You can see, as you can see in the figure, you can find a sheath. You can see this blue colored sheath that is known as mucilaginous sheath. It's a mucilaginous or gelatinous sheath can be found covering the entire colony of bacteria. And some of them, some members, so cyanobacteria means it's a group of bacteria. Nostoc, Anabaena, so many are there. And some of them are capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen. You know the significance of fixing atmospheric nitrogen, because plants cannot use the nitrogen present in the atmosphere. It should be converted to some compounds, nitrogen compounds, and added to the soil. Only then the plants can use it. So blue-green algae, some of the blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, they are capable of fixing nitrogen in specialized cells known as heterocysts. And inside the heterocyst, they are capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen. They are capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen in these specialized cells known as heterocysts. So once again, we'll repeat the characteristics of a blue-green algae. They have chlorophyll A similar to that of green plants. So they are able to carry out photosynthesis, or they are autotrophs, photosynthetic autotrophs. They are single-celled, prokaryotic, but they can form colonies or filaments by the combination of several bacteria. And their colonies are usually surrounded by a gelatinous sheath or a mucilaginous sheath, keeping the colony together. And they are capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen. They are capable of converting atmospheric nitrogen into soluble compounds of nitrogen so that the plants can use it. And this happens in specialized cells known as heterocyst. This happens in specialized cells known as heterocyst. Okay? And examples, nostoc and anabina. And I forgot to tell about a very important property of this particular organism. They form a phenomenon known as algal blooms. They form algal blooms. Anybody have heard about algal bloom? Anybody? Michael, have you heard about algal bloom? No, no one. Punya, have you heard about algal bloom?
No.
No. So algal bloom is a phenomenon where there will be rapid production or rapid growth of these organisms. These microscopic, even though we call it as algae, it's not an alga. The reason is we call them as blue-green algae or cyanobacteria because algae are capable of carrying out photosynthesis. So cyanobacteria too have the green pigment chlorophyll. They are capable of carrying out photosynthesis. So that is why we call it as blue-green algae. In fact, they are not algae. The phenomenon you call it as algal bloom. And when the nutrients like nitrates, phosphates, etc., nitrates, phosphates, etc., are washed into water bodies. Nitrates, phosphates, etc., are washed into water bodies. It will promote, these nutrients will promote the rapid growth of alga present in that water body. And they multiply rapidly and they cover the entire water body, imparting a green, bluish green color to the water body. But this phenomenon is an indication of pollution. And once it happens, it is dangerous. Michael, once it happens, it is dangerous to the organisms surviving in water because these organisms are short-lived. They will die and result in the formation of a high concentration of dead organic matter. If these dead organic matter should be decomposed, oxygen is needed. So they will use up the dissolved oxygen present in water. So what happens is the organisms, the fishes, plants and other aquatic organisms living in water body will run short of oxygen. They will not be able to survive. And another problem is that when they form a layer, thick layer on the surface of the water body, it will reduce the penetration of sunlight into water. That can affect the photosynthetic plants surviving there. Clear? So algal bloom is an indication of pollution. Now you might be thinking how nitrates and phosphates are reaching the water body. It can reach water body when fertilizers containing these substances or cleaning agents like detergents used in the household are washed away into the water bodies. They can promote rapid growth of algae, causing algal bloom. The algal bloom is an indication of polluted water body and they will affect the animals surviving in water body very badly. So we will discuss about the remaining types of eubacteria later. Okay, photosynthetic bacteria, I hope you have understood. So we'll just have a quick rewind of what we have covered today. We started with the kingdom Monera, and I told you that Monera includes bacteria. They are the sole members. They are the most abundant microorganisms. The kingdom includes unicellular prokaryotes, and they are found in all extreme habitats where even a human being cannot survive. Many of them lead a parasitic life. And then we discussed about the different types of bacteria based on their shape: Coccus, Bacillus, Vibrio, Spirillum, etc. Then we moved on to the other features of bacteria, and I told you that bacteria, they have so much of complexity in their behavior, and they show a great deal of metabolic diversity. They show different modes of nutrition like autotrophic and heterotrophic. Autotrophic can be further categorized into chemosynthetic and photosynthetic, and heterotrophic into parasitic and saprophytic. After that, we discussed about archaebacteria. And archaebacteria, I told you that depending upon the extreme habitat where they are surviving, you can categorize them into halophiles, thermoacidophiles, and methanogens. Methanogens are found in the gut of chewing animals and helps in the production of biogas. Then we moved on to eubacteria, where organisms are provided with rigid cell wall and flagellum for movement. Here also you can find different modes of nutrition. We started with photosynthetic autotrophs, example cyanobacteria, and they include, or they have chlorophyll. They are provided with chlorophyll A, similar to that of green plants. They are unicellular. They form colonies or filaments. They are found in different habitats like terrestrial habitat, marine, or freshwater. And these colonies form a gelatinous covering or mucilaginous covering, and they can form algal blooms in polluted water bodies, and they are capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen in specialized cells known as heterocysts. Examples, nostoc and anabina. Any doubt? Any doubt, children? No doubt. Please open up. Any doubt? Malavika, just tell me the name of the cells where nitrogen fixation takes place. Name of the cells where nitrogen fixation takes place. Malavika. Name the cells in cyanobacteria where nitrogen fixation takes place. Malavika, you know? That is the name of the organism. Where does it take place? Punya?
Heterocyst.
Heterocyst. Malavika, note down the main points. Okay, children? Hope you don't have any doubts. I'm winding up the session. See you next class. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.